Try closing your eyes and remembering the last time you suffered from insomnia. Perhaps it was due to work pressure, or a late cup of coffee, or endless wandering thoughts. How did it feel then? By the second day, your eyes start to burn as if thousands of grains of sand had gotten in, your head buzzing, your body heavy. By the third day, the boundary between reality and dreams begins to blur. You might hear someone calling your name despite no one being around, or see a shadow sweep past your eye. Sleep, which we consider an obvious part of life, is actually the only anchor keeping the mind from madness. So what would happen if that anchor were severed completely? Not for 1 day or 2 days, but for 15 consecutive days in a sealed room under the influence of a ghostly chemical? Welcome to the darkness, where science crosses the line of the devil and humans tear apart their own humanity. Today, we will uncover the entire horrifying truth behind the most haunting file of the 20th century, the Russian sleep experiment. In the late 1940s, as the smoke of World War II cleared and the suffocating air of the Cold War emerged, the arms race didn't just stop at bombs or nukes. Both sides craved the ultimate biological weapons. At a top-secret underground research facility deep below the Soviet Union, a group of scientists was given a blasphemous task: to completely eliminate the human need for sleep. Their ambition was to create super soldiers who could stay awake indefinitely, fighting tirelessly day and night, turning humans into mindless machines with absolutely no weaknesses. But to do that, they needed scapegoats. 5 men, political prisoners labeled as enemies of the state, were chosen. The promise given to them seemed like a blessing from heaven. Just participate in a 30-day physiological test, staying awake for the entire duration, and they would be fully pardoned and set completely free. The 5 prisoners, carrying a flickering hope for a new life, stepped into the chamber, unaware that they were stepping into a living tomb. The testing chamber was a cold steel block, completely isolated from the outside world. It was equipped with thick tempered glass windows for observation, along with a system of hidden microphones scattered across the corners to capture every sound, no matter how small. Inside, there were enough dry rations for a month, drinking water, a toilet, and a small bookshelf. There was absolutely no bed or anything soft that could induce sleepiness. As soon as the heavy steel door slammed shut and the lock was tightly secured, the ventilation started, pumping an experimental gas called Nikolaev gas into the room. This was a powerful airborne nerve stimulant, carefully mixed with oxygen to ensure the victims wouldn't die of poisoning, but permanently stripped of their ability to sleep. A sweet, rusty smell began to spread through the air. The experiment had officially begun. For the first 3 days, everything proceeded unusually calmly. The 5 men appeared cooperative. They read books, chatted with each other about their hometowns, and what they would do when they were free. The scientists documented all vital signs with great optimism. But that silence was only the surface of a storm. Starting on the 4th day, their nervous systems began to buckle under the effects of the gas and sleep deprivation. The cheerful conversations became scarce. The atmosphere in the room turned suffocating and intensely oppressive. The content of their conversations shifted toward dark subjects. They talked about the filthiest corners of their past, unforgivable sins, and the deaths they had witnessed. Every moral layer of a civilized human was being peeled away. By the 5th day, human camaraderie completely collapsed. They stopped talking to each other altogether. The spacious room suddenly felt cramped due to a hostile silence. Instead of communicating, they exhibited bizarre behaviors. They pressed their faces against the walls, searching for the hidden microphones, and began muttering into them, endlessly whispering delusional accusations, bad-mouthing and blaming the very inmates standing just a few steps away. They paranoiacally believed that if they could prove the others were traitors, the scientists would favor and release them. The way they looked at each other was no longer human, but like cornered beasts full of suspicion and bloodlust. That sick repression lasted until the 9th day, and then the psychological bomb officially detonated. Suddenly, one of the 5 prisoners stopped dead in his tracks. He tilted his head back toward the ceiling and began to scream. It was no ordinary scream, but a piercing, agonizing howl, carrying all the pain and absolute despair. He ran frantically around the cramped room, screaming at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight without resting. The scientists outside stood stunned behind the glass, witnessing the spectacle of a human being destroying himself. He screamed until his vocal cords were torn apart, snapping completely, with tiny sprays of blood spewing from the corners of his mouth. The final sound escaping his throat was nothing more than a faint, dry wheeze, like wind blowing through a broken pipe. But what sent shivers down the observers' spines was not the screaming, but the reaction of the remaining 4 men. Not a single one turned to look. Not a single one showed any signs of panic or pity. They were like soulless ghosts, keeping their heads down, muttering meaningless words into the cold microphones. The real world had completely collapsed within their minds. A few hours later, the eerie silence was broken again when a second prisoner began a similar chain of actions. Once again, maddening screams tore through the air. This time, the remaining 3 did not just sit still. 2 of them engaged in actions that horrified the onlookers due to their sheer calmness and apathy. They quietly walked over to the bookshelf and tore out pages one by one. They put the paper into their mouths, chewing them mechanically, then slowly spat them out, mixing them with their own feces and urine on the floor. Then, with bizarre concentration, they smeared that filthy mixture all over the observation glass windows, piece by piece, patch by patch, until the entire view from the outside was completely blocked off. Inside the chamber was now an isolated world, a sealed-off, pitch-black hell. The very moment the last window was covered, the screaming inside abruptly stopped. The muttering disappeared as well. From the 10th day to the 14th day, the space was so silent that one could hear their own heartbeat. Not a single sound, not even footsteps or breathing, made it through the microphones. The scientists began to panic. The oxygen sensors still reported that all 5 men were alive, even consuming a massive amount of oxygen, equivalent to the consumption rate of athletes engaging in the highest intensity workouts. What was happening in that dark room? Why did they need so much oxygen if they were just sitting still? The fear of the unseen began to gnaw at the sanity of the people running the experiment. By the 15th day, the pressure reached its peak. Completely violating the initial rules, the research team decided to intervene. They turned on the intercom system and announced in a stern voice, "Attention, we are opening the doors to test the microphones. Step back, lie flat on your stomachs, and put your hands behind your heads. Any non-compliance will result in immediate termination. If you comply, one of you will earn your immediate freedom." They held their breath and waited. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then a static sound crackled from the speaker. A soulless, cold, monotonous voice, as if coming from the underworld, spoke up, erasing all the scientists' hopes. "We no longer want to be freed." That night, the final decision was made. The chamber doors would be open. The ventilation system was immediately reversed. The Nikolaev stimulant gas was completely flushed out, replaced by a stream of fresh night air. The very moment the gas was removed, the chamber erupted with agonizing screams. 3 different voices cried out at once, weeping, moaning, desperately begging the scientists. They didn't beg for food, they didn't beg for water, nor did they demand freedom. They begged for the gas to be pumped back in. They screamed for the very poison that stripped away their sleep, as if it were their only source of life, the only thing tethering their souls to their bodies. A squad of Special Forces soldiers, armed to the teeth and wearing gas masks, was ordered to go inside. The heavy steel door let out dry squeals as it was thrown wide open. And the first thing to greet them was a disgusting smell that defied description. A mixture of the rusty metallic scent of fresh blood, rotting flesh, and overwhelming excrement. Several soldiers immediately vomited right inside their gas masks. The scene revealed before the flashlight beams was a portrait of demons. Only 4 men were still alive. The 5th prisoner lay dead amidst a viscous pool of blood on the floor. The only drain in the room had been completely clogged by chunks of flesh, human skin, and bone fragments, leaving the entire floor flooded in about 4 inches of a thick, dark red liquid. But the most horrifying truth, the thing that made even the most battle-hardened soldiers step back in sheer panic, lay with the 4 who were still alive. The food rations from day 5 remained completely untouched in a corner of the room. They hadn't touched the food at all. Those 4 men had survived for over 10 days by tearing off their very own flesh. Large chunks of skin from their thighs, chests, and biceps had been completely ripped away. Muscles were torn apart raggedly, exposing sections of pale white bone beneath. In some of them, the chest was laid bare to the point where the internal organs could be clearly seen, pulsating and pumping. Their lungs were exposed, their hearts beating faintly through a slimy membrane. Medical examiners later were horrified to discover that the wounds were not caused by altercations, but were inflicted by the victim's own hands and teeth. Their stomachs were bloated, digesting the very chunks of flesh they had carved from their own bodies. They had eaten themselves in the darkness, in the ultimate lucidity of their madness. When the soldiers approached to take them out, these creatures that were once human fought back with an absurd, supernatural strength. Even though their bodies were torn to shreds, with bones exposed, they still lunged at the armed soldiers with the savagery of wild beasts. One soldier had his throat ripped out by teeth. Another had his groin torn apart. During the struggle, one prisoner's spleen ruptured, blood gushing outward. He collapsed, but his mouth continuously screamed, demanding the gas. The military medic tried to inject a sedative, administering a dose 10 times that of a normal person. But the creature only convulsed. Its eyes rolled back, its heart rate spiked to an impossible level, and then it stopped breathing. The remaining 3 were subdued and brought to the operating table. The surgical process was another nightmare for the medical staff. The prisoners were completely immune to all types of anesthetics. When the scalpel sliced into their flesh to try and put their internal organs back into place, instead of screaming in pain, they smiled. A wide, trembling, and maniacal smile. The assisting surgical nurse had to flee the operating room because she was so haunted. As one prisoner kept staring at her, a ghostly smile blooming on his mouth every time the blade touched his bones. Another prisoner, whose vocal cords had been destroyed since the 9th day, was unable to speak. But when the surgeon stopped, he used all his strength to thrash wildly on the hospital bed, shaking his head violently and using a trembling finger to write on a blood-stained piece of paper, "Keep cutting." They seemed addicted to the sensation of pain. Pain was the only thing proving that they were still awake, still existing. The peak of the horror arrived at the very end. The military commander, a high-ranking Soviet general, could not endure it any longer. He drew his gun, walked straight into the hospital room, and pointed the cold barrel directly at the forehead of the last surviving prisoner. His eyes burned with absolute rage and terror. He growled, "What are you? I must know." The creature on the hospital bed, its chest heaving with weak breaths through blood-soaked bandages, slowly turned its head. It looked straight into the general's eyes. A smile tearing all the way to its ears slowly appeared on a face devoid of humanity. It spoke in a chilling whisper, a sound that seemed to resonate from the bottom of an abyss. "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind whenever you fall asleep. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread. Hearing those words, the general tremblingly took a step back and pulled the trigger. The bullet embedded straight into the creature's forehead. It slumped over, muttering its final words mixed with blood. So, nearly free. The story closes, leaving a freezing and profoundly haunting aftermath. The image of people tearing themselves apart in the darkness, rejecting life to drown in an inescapable delusion, has turned the Russian sleep experiment into one of the greatest urban legends, spreading fear to millions around the world. But take a deep breath and return to the light of reality. What is the truth behind this terrifying file? Is there really a ghostly gas in creatures that eat their own flesh? The answer, fortunately for humanity, is no. This story is completely fictional. It is an excellent piece of creepypasta, first posted by an anonymous author on an internet horror forum in August 2010. The photograph accompanying the story, an image of an emaciated, pale creature with staring eyes and a gruesome smile, which became a nightmare for so many, is not actually a mutated prisoner. It is a photograph of a rubber Halloween decoration prop named Spasm, widely sold in the US. Someone took a picture of this model, edited it into black and white, added grain and scratches to create the feel of a classified document photo from the mid-20th century. However, if it's just a fabricated story, why does it have such vitality and make people believe it so implicitly? Because the author's genius lies in this. He wove a perfect lie based on the foundations of historical and biological truths. Firstly, human history is not lacking in dark corners, where humans, in the name of science and war, commit heinous crimes. From Unit 731 of Fascist Japan, conducting vivisections on prisoners without anesthesia, to the US CIA's MK-Ultra project, using LSD to brainwash and control minds. Military powers experimenting cruelly on humans is an overly authentic motif, making our brains easily accept the Russian sleep experiment as a hidden piece of history. Secondly, and also the most terrifying thing, the harm of sleep deprivation in the story is exaggerated, but its horrific devastation on the brain is absolutely real from a scientific perspective. Sleep is not a choice. It is an evolutionary command of biology. When you are awake, your neurons work continuously and release toxic waste proteins in the brain. When you sleep, brain cells shrink, making way for cerebrospinal fluid to wash in, cleaning and flushing out dozens of these toxins. If you stay awake for many days, you are blocking this self-cleaning system. Toxins accumulate more and more, eroding neural connections, creating hallucinations, paranoia, and eventually destroying the brain completely. In 1964, a 17-year-old named Randy Gardner set a world record for voluntary sleeplessness by staying awake for 264 hours, or 11 consecutive days. He didn't turn into a monster, but his mind shattered. By day 4, Randy began suffering severe paranoia, seeing hallucinations, and believing he was someone else. In the final days, his brain began to resist his will. It automatically fell into a state of microsleeps, brief periods of sleep lasting only a few seconds, even when his eyes were wide open. The body had to resort to its most extreme defense mechanism to save its life. Even more terrifyingly, there is a rare disease in medicine with a 100% mortality rate known as Fatal Familial Insomnia, FFI. Due to a cruel genetic mutation, malformed proteins attack the thalamus, the sleep control center of the brain. Patients gradually lose the ability to enter deep sleep. For months, they stay wide awake, falling into a state of madness, paranoia, extreme physical exhaustion, sweating profusely, half dead between the boundary of reality and nightmare, until their bodies are completely depleted and death comes as the only release. This medical truth sometimes is even more persistent and cruel than any fictional torture. The Russian sleep experiment might not be real, but it is a sharp, cold reminder of human limits. We always pride ourselves on our intellect, civilization, and ability to conquer nature. But deep inside this fragile biological body, we remain bound by the most instinctive needs. Sleep is the very chain restraining the animal part within the human. When we arrogantly strip away that basic need, the shell of civilization will peel off. And what awakens from the deep depths of consciousness is not evolution, but a monster wearing our own faces. Thank you for accompanying me to the very last moments of this haunting file. If you are passionate about mysterious stories, uncovering truths, and gritty analysis of the dark side of human psychology, do not hesitate to hit the follow button, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments section. Tonight, when darkness falls and you lay your back on your soft bed, close your eyes, listen to your own breathing, and cherish the approaching sleep. Because somewhere out there are minds that will never find peace. Good night, and see you in the next stories.